Hi, everybody, and welcome to this presentation. My name is Andreas Fibiger, and I'm the philanthropy lead of Central and Eastern Europe at Microsoft. Just a few words about who I am and what I do in my daily job is that when we lead and coordinate philanthropies in Central and Eastern Europe, that is covering 33 countries. So we have various contexts and various challenges, but also lots of opportunity in this region. We are usually going a lot with NGO partnerships, digital upskilling, but also what we're doing is that we are giving out grants for the AI for Good campaign. And the AI for Good campaign is something that we're going to talk about today. As the theme of this event is better living, I will go into AI for accessibility as the main one, but I'll also touch upon what the rest of the program is and how it's structured, as I think it will spark some interest in many of you, and maybe accessibility is not the one that will hit you. So we'll go around the others, but we'll take a deep dive into AI for accessibility. So a quick agenda here for you guys is that we'll go with the AI for Good program. I will tell you how it's structured, why it's structured, what it does for a company like Microsoft. And also we'll take the deep dive into AI for accessibility, which is one of 5 pillars within the AI for Good overall program. Then we have the focus areas of using AI within accessibilities. And then I'll end off the presentation with how to apply for a grant at Microsoft. So we'll have the criteria and the process of how you guys can actually do this if you have the right idea to make, for example, AI more accessible to people and beneficiaries around the world. So let's start here. And I'm just going to mention that I'll be showing some videos throughout, because I think it makes, both you can see examples of other programs, but also it will give an opportunity not for me to talk the entire time and for you to watch some of the amazing stuff that is happening at Microsoft. So I hope you enjoy, and let's get started with the real presentation. So here is AI for Good is how do we use artificial intelligence for good purposes? And AI refers to a broad range of technologies that can help us perceive images and sounds and understand them, learn from these inputs and interactions and get better over time, and reason over large amounts of data to identify patterns. And I'm sure that you guys are all familiar with artificial intelligence, or at least have heard about artificial intelligence. And it is a theme that is really a hot topic, but also something where we have to think about ethics and how can we actually use and leverage AI to empower every human as possible to do more and do better. So our belief in AI is that we believe artificial intelligence has the power to amplify human ingenuity and also to extend capabilities so we can achieve more. So the challenge here is actually to make this as accessible to everyone. And how do we make AI accessible to all generations, people that have challenges, people everywhere around the world, as you know, that there are places in the world that are more advanced in technology. So this is how do we make it accessible? And this is going to be the main topic of the presentation today. And how can we actually really empower a technology that is already out there improving lives? And how do we think about this in an innovative way where we can actually showcase that artificial intelligence is not a thing that will come and take over all jobs, but it is a thing that can help a lot of people in their daily life and can actually create more jobs as we go along. But as I just mentioned, AI and ethics is a huge topic. So also the quote here for Brad Smith, is the president of Microsoft, is ultimately the question is not only what computers can do, it's what computers should do. And exactly, this narrative is something that we're trying to go about in Microsoft. How can we make computers help us? How do we make sure that computers are accessible to everyone? So we're committed to ensuring responsible development and use of artificial intelligence and to empower people around the world with this intelligent technology. So this is why the AI for Good program is there. And this is what we're trying to do with it. So what is the AI for Good project? It consists, as mentioned, of 5 pillars. There is AI for Earth, there is AI for accessibility, AI for humanitarian action, AI for cultural heritage, and AI for health. And the overall umbrella phrase is AI for Good, and it's 125 million commitment to empower those working around the world to solve humanitarian issues, advance global sustainability, and amplify human capabilities as well. So these are the 5 pillars. I'll take a short dive into many of these, and then we'll have, I'll give you one example for AI for Earth, as this is one of the programs where we are giving out most grants, and then we'll take the deep dive into AI for accessibility, as this is the theme of the presentation today. But I feel that the overall scope of the entire program is an important thing to understand how and why Microsoft has put this big of an investment into using artificial intelligence for good purposes. So let's get it started here. Moving on, one of the hot topics of today, now that we have the COVID pandemic as well, is AI for health. Also a big investment. It's also about leveraging AI, empowering people and organizations, but this is preservation and enrichment of how can we use artificial intelligence to cover more people, to make people more healthy, and how can we also use AI to educate nurses, to educate doctors? How can we think of technology in a way where it's possible to do more within the healthcare sector? How can we make sure that people are more healthy? How can we make sure that people all over the world have the same possibilities and the same medical treatments? This is AI for health. And naturally, a lot of these grants has also been given to COVID research, new ways of thinking about how do we create vaccines? How do we actually vaccinate people? So AI for health, definitely a present topic. And you can see some of the focus areas here. So quest for discovery, as I just mentioned, for example, around COVID. So accelerating medical research to advance prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of diseases. Global health insights, health equity. So these are also really huge topics. There's lots of stuff here to dig into, but AI for health is super present if you look at the world situation right now, but it's also something that can develop a lot over time. And how can we see examples of robots, creating the first cut in an operation. We see robots and machine learnings being better to diagnose cancer. So there's lots of topics within AI for health that you guys can look into as well, if this one is interesting to you. And of course, like the others, I've brought a few featured projects that you can look into if you want to know more. They're here, and the links will be shared afterwards. So another one of the big ones, and this is one that I'll go into a little more. I know that there's a lot of other topics around sustainability, so I'll not be the one deep diving into this. But this is one of the really big ones that we have, the AI for Earth, and also something that is super present and will become more and more present as we see both Microsoft, but also lots of the other companies going into a carbon emission-free direction, having biodiversity, having water consumption, climate change, everything on their strategies. So the Earth and the sustainability topic is not one that will decrease. Opposite, it will increase through time. So this is super interesting, and there's lots of cool ways where we can use and leverage the technology that we have into actually creating a more sustainable Earth, or learning more about sustainability. So within the AI for Earth grants, there are 4 main pillars which we can go into. There is agriculture. So how do we feed a growing world population, and how do we do this sustainably? And the world is rapidly growing. The population is at an all-time high, and it's still increasing. So farmers must produce more food on less land and with a lower environmental impact. So how can we actually make sure that this is happening? How can we make sure that we are creating sustainable growth when having crops or anything like that? We have to make sure that we're doing it in the most sustainable way, and to produce food for the entire planet. And also, this is a bit interconnected with the next one, which is water. So conserve and protect water sources. We have never seen more drought periods than in this last decade. So how do we react and respond to drought periods? How do we mitigate and adapt? And this is a super interesting one as well, because it is interconnected with agriculture, because how and when do we water the plants to make a more sustainable product? So there are lots of thinking, and there's lots of grants, and also biodiversity. We have lots of species on this earth that are not human, and we have a lot of extinction, unfortunately. So how can we monitor and protect species is also a way that we can use, for example, satellite imagery, and all these kinds of stuff. So how can we make sure that we maintain a biodiverse planet? Also one of the 4 focus points within this one. And then, of course, the big one, climate change, the one that no one can avoid anymore. How to reduce climate change and impact on communities? How do we make sure, because this is a common problem throughout the world, climate change, and it has to be something where we can stand together. And if we can leverage technology, machine learning, AI to help, or to at least make the process longer, then we should do that. And there's so many cool projects within AI for Earth. The list is much longer than this, but here are some of the ones that you can look into. There's Wild Me. Well, I'm going to show you just a quick video of this, as AI for Earth is still not the main topic, but I wanted you to get into the idea of how can we structure a project and what are the solutions that we're looking for to giving out these grants. So I'm going to show you a video right after this one. But then we also have, like, Sylvia Terra can map the future of forest with machine learning. Land cover mapping is a project focused on precision conservation. Farm Beats is heavily used as well. Data-driven farming to sustainable feed the world. Really cool videos on that as well. And how do we make sure that agriculture stays and gets more sustainable? So we can use drones and AI technology to know when to water and where to plant. And yeah, there's lots of cool programs, but I've chosen to show you Wild Me because it's in thought it's a rather simple but also a very genius solution to protect species. But for today's deep dive, as the theme is better living, we'll go into AI for accessibility, and this is also a super cool program, and a really intelligent way of thinking about how can we leverage artificial intelligence to empower people, and especially empower people with disabilities. And there are many ways that this can be done. And the way of starting is to see people who are having a problem with accessing or using technology, or actually people who are having problems with their daily lives, and then see if we can use technology to assist these people. So like the others, I've brought the focus areas. It's going to also, if any of you wants to apply for a grant or have a solution around this, it's good for you to know what the scope is. So employment is one. It's focused on using AI to help people develop additional skills in the workplace and evolve the culture around inclusive hiring. So if we look at the percentages of people who carries a challenge or a disability compared to people without, and look at the unemployment rates, then people with a disability has a lot higher unemployment rate throughout the world. So this is one of the things that we're trying to address with this program. Then we have the daily life. Daily life is focused on building modern solutions. With disability, you have you'll have some challenges and obstacles in your daily life, things that are harder to do than if you don't have a disability. And these are the things that we're trying to help or sort out with using technology. And I've brought you a pretty cool example that we're going to watch later, where you can see how we can use technology in daily life and how much it actually can do. And then the last one is communication and connection. This is something, how do we, also around social life, how do we make sure that we can communicate and connect with other people? That is also a really, really important topic. But first, I'm going to show you the overall video for AI for accessibility, to showcase the entire program and to get you guys to see the broader scope. And then we'll deep dive into the 3 focus areas afterwards. So sit back and please enjoy.
We have so many pupils who are non-verbal, but still have so much to say.
I want the exact same information that my hearing friends have.
There are barriers to communication everywhere, but I think it's time we look at the barriers as opportunities to reach out to everyone.
Soundscape fills in a lot of the mental map as you move.
Approaching intersection.
You can just put it in your pocket and go.
With ALS, you become locked in, but we see technology as a way to give back what ALS has taken away.
There's no better feeling than to hear a child say something that they've wanted to say and the look on their face after they've been able to say it.
When it's reading, I see spaces between the words.
And it's easy to focus on.
Andrzej realized that here was something that could change his life.
Now that I have my phone, I can see exactly what was said, and that's been a huge help to me.
The system is learning as it goes, and the accuracy has improved tremendously.
Students can pick any language that they choose to receive the information. It's like we jumped into the future.
Because communication is very important for all of us, and we just want to be together and not feel left out.
Aider les personnes avec autisme à communiquer, il y a des images.
Je parle, je donne une information à Arthur et elle est traduite par l'application El Picto instantanément en pictogramme et après d'une façon orale.
Va t'habiller et te brosser les dents.
On va pouvoir remettre en place une communication qui est plus spontanée. Je crois que ça aide à recréer du lien.
Both my wife and I are totally blind, and we have a 3-year-old son that's in preschool. He can see, but his parents can't. So to be able to know what's going on at his school is everything. The Seeing AI app has the ability to allow me access to the visual world. Artificial intelligence is beginning to have an impact on the lives of people with disabilities, but it's only going to grow. There is still so much out there to be done.
So that is the broader overview of the program. As you can see, it features lots of our cool projects in there. The Seeing AI, I'm going to take a deeper dive into. That is a mobile app that actually helps blind people not to see, but to help them see. But there are super many cool projects within this video that I mentioned that you can deep dive into. But I brought some of them as well into here, to this slide, featured projects, and you can look into some of these. There are a lot of cool things happening here, and it is amazing how much technology can help people that are disabled in any way, whether it's a diagnosis like autism, or whether you have, if you're hearing impaired, blind, and technology is just, it can really, really help you. And I think lots of these people that I'm going to show you also very thankful of how we can use artificial intelligence to make their everyday life more accessible and to make it easier. But The first one we're gonna take a bit deeper dive into is employment. And here I brought a link which is going to be shared with you afterwards as well. Our ability is furthering inclusive hiring in the manufacturing and scientific research field with an accessible and intuitive AI-powered chatbot. And if you go and click on this link, as you can do after this presentation, you can see that this is a job portal like any other job portal, but a job portal for people with disabilities. It will help you empower people that has disabilities and have a hard time figuring out how to get a job or where to get a job. So this database is structured as you can look into what kind of jobs can I get and how can I also use the abilities that I have in a bigger company. There are lots of ways for people that are different to normality, and sometimes this can be also a huge advantage to have, different ways of seeing things, different way of experiencing things, having firsthand experience with how technology can actually help you and make the daily life more easy. But I would suggest you to click on this link when you have the time. And Our Ability is a super cool portal and a great way of thinking about employment and how do we create the same chances for employment as everyone else have. Then we have the daily life, which is a very, very important one. In our daily life, devices come in all shapes and sizes. I'm sure that all of you are at least carrying one or two devices right now, and it impacts our life. But understanding how people with disabilities use those devices have not evolved on the same basis as the way that we use these devices. And these devices can actually create lots of good things with people with disabilities, as we see the man on the stairs here who is blind. And yeah, it's just, we have to make sure that our technology is accessible to everyone, and we have to make sure that it's affordable. So what it can do is to think about what challenges do we have in our daily lives, and how can we actually use this technology to make people, for example, see. And I'm going to show you a video of Seeing AI. It's a project that was also briefly featured in the overall video of AI for accessibility that I showed you in the beginning. But this is a really cool example to how can we think about actually making artificial intelligence empower people. So let's have a look.
My take on life is that life is definitely there for the taking. What you put in is what you'll get out. Two things important to me in life are family and music. They both play a huge part in my life. Technology allows me to be my own one-man band. I try to be as independent as I can, and the way that I do that mostly is with low-tech, which is a white cane, and high-tech, which is a phone.
Seeing AI.
Seeing AI is one of the biggest deals in technology, I think, at the moment for visually impaired users. It's an app that you can read almost anything, anywhere with it.
Kilburn High Road. Fashion, workspace, mayonnaise.
It has a multitude of functions, and they all work together to produce something that you can use whenever you need it. It might even be considered to be a Swiss Army knife of apps. Of all the parts of Seeing AI, I really do think short text is the biggest of the game changers.
Northwest 6.
Because I've never seen anything like that in any other app before. And I like being in the back of cabs or in buses and pointing it out the window and seeing what I pass on the way to places.
Mobile phone NC 4000 services.
One of the greatest things about short text for me is that if there's no one else in the house, I can sort the post into who's who.
Mrs. K. Louis. Mrs. Kirsten Louis.
So I don't open my wife's post and she doesn't get cross with me. Package.
Yo, well, Andre.
My man Alex.
Good. One, fella. Blessed.
£20.
That's really cool.
Currency is a very useful channel because sometimes it's very difficult to know what notes actually are. So with currency, I can detect that straight away.
£5.
Job done. 2025. Well done.
Scene preview.
Scene is actually really cool. It's quite descriptive, really.
Processing. A store filled with lots of different types of fruit.
I think that's pretty amazing.
Terrific.
In my view, one of the best parts of seeing AI is the ability to read pictures from social media, because so many times someone will send me a picture of something that I cannot understand. So I will share that picture to Seeing AI.
Scene. Probably a group of people sitting on a bench in a park.
And then I'll get a description of what it is.
Person. 8-year-old boy with black hair looking happy, 7-year-old girl with brown hair looking disgusted.
And it's changed how I can view social media. It feels like I can participate.
Like, reply.
Far more than I could before.
Thank you for sharing. Handwriting preview.
With Handwriting Channel, I was actually able to read a card from a family member last year. That's the first time I'd actually been able to do that without help.
Dear Dad.
That was
Alice worked. Good. We can tell if Jake's been writing well, if the handwriting tab can recognize it. That's good proof, really.
We love you, Daddy. XXXXXX.
We've got lots of X's. The effect of having Seeing AI to hand all the time is like having somebody who can see in your pocket.
34-year-old man with a beard wearing a hat looking happy.
Why not?
There is so much more that I can do now that I couldn't before. You've grown up.
I used to be nice.
I think Seeing AI really is a huge technological step down the road, and I hope that we can continue down a road like this for many years to come.
So that is a really cool video, I think, and it really showcases exactly the point. This is a blind man who can actually look at social media. It's a blind man who can interpret different types of bills. It's a man who can sort his mail, and all this is brought to him by using a mobile phone and artificial intelligence and machine learning. So this is the way that we should think about these projects. How can we actually, there is a problem in people who are blind and how they act in their daily life. How can we help them better their daily lives? And this is an example of it. And I think this showcases also how many things one app can do. One app of Seeing AI. It's not just seeing and being guided. It can interpret faces. It can determine age of people. It can, you can point it out of the window in a cab and actually see what's outside the window while you're driving. So this is an amazing tool, and this is exactly what we're looking for in these types of projects. So to go into the last one is communication and connection. And it is fundamental to our personal and professional lives. And technology can increase fundamental part of how we communicate with each other. And we can see that there are people out there that has a harder time communicating. That can be because of diagnosis, that can be because of social anxiety, that can be because of many different reasons that it is harder to communicate. You can also have problem with speaking. You can be a stutter. There are lots of different here. And this is also a thing that we can solve. It is also interconnected into daily life, because this is how can we help problems in daily life. And I'm also going to show you a super cool example of this, where we can see, especially kids also that are nonverbal. How can we use technology to make these people more verbal, not only to speak, but to communicate with each other? And also that it can be a gatherer of a discussion or a gatherer between kids to see how technology works. And as you can see in this picture on the iPads here. So let's take a look at a super cool program, Inner Voice by iTherapy. And this will be the last video I show you, and then we'll can dig into the grants. So enjoy.
Ever since Sarah came into my classroom, she's not communicated with me or the other kids in any way. I needed a new way to reach her.
People have challenges communicating for many reasons. Babies learn to communicate by looking directly at their parent's face, and then they learn to imitate that. Babies with autism have big challenges in looking at faces, but digital faces engage them immediately.
We use avatars and visual language modeling to simulate how parents teach their children to talk using Microsoft AI.
So a child takes a picture and an avatar describes it.
A little boy.
Just like mom or dad would. Jeremiah is a young man with autism, and he was nonverbal.
The red apple.
Now you write it. Awesome. What's that?
Apple.
Excellent.
The chatbot offers a unique opportunity to get good at speech and language skills because it'll practice the same thing over and over. Microsoft's AI for Good provided crucial technology that allows people to practice speech and language skills in a natural way. It gives every single person access.
When Inner Voice came into the classroom, we noticed instant change.
Bark, bark.
Sarah absolutely floored me. With Inner Voice, she has a voice.
All you have to do is open a little crack in the door, and they all run through it.
As we can see how these projects are formed and what is going to make a project really good. And for you, if any one of you who are watching this has a great idea or want to go down a road of making technology more accessible or making accessible technology benefit other people with challenges in their everyday life, then you might be one that could apply for a grant. And we have two different types of grants in Microsoft. There's one with Azure credits. This is the fast track to get up and running on Azure AI services with Azure compute credits. It's usually worth between $10,000 and $20,000. So this is a way to get started if you have a good program. This is something that everyone can apply for. Then there is the Azure credits plus cash. And then in addition to the Azure compute credits, these can cover costs related to collecting or labeling data, developing models, engineering of any sort. And applications like these are evaluated on scientific merit, and especially innovative use of AI, as I've shown you in these different video examples, and also a potential for scalability. Is this, a small thing that we can create for a group and test it out? But could it be something that could help, for example, everyone that are diagnosed with the same diagnosis in the world? So scalability is important to think in if we're going for an Azure credit plus cash. These are usually also signature projects that we're doing regionally throughout Microsoft. So this is an opportunity if you have a greater scope idea, then you can also apply for this. So there are two different types of grants that you can try to get if you have a good idea within accessibility, but also in the 4 other categories, which I mentioned earlier. AI for Earth grants is also really huge. So if you have an idea on how sustainability and AI could interact and create a more sustainable world, then you're also very, very welcome to apply for one of those. But let me get into a few more details if there's anyone interested in the crowd here. So for example, it could be developed with or by people with disabilities if we're looking into AI for accessibility. The relevance is that it has to be built with either AI or machine learning, the two abbreviations here, and then it has to interact with Azure. The impact of the program or a grant proposal, that it has to be within one of our 3 focus areas. This is only accessibility. So elevating employment, daily life tasks, or communication and connections, which are the 3 examples that I also showed you. In, for example, AI for Earth, these would be within agriculture, water, biodiversity, or climate change, and so on for the rest of the grants. So the data will be open to sharing, and it has to be data for future innovation. Potential feasibility and sustainability is potential beyond years of funding. So we have to make sure that there is a sustainable project that can go on without funding in the future. It has to be capable with having the right team there to maintain a solution. It has to be capable in a way that knowledge is extended. And then, the last and one of the most important thing is that you can showcase a good story. As these videos that you just watch are showing a good story, then you have to be able to form a narrative that are showcasing how AI can help people. And this is also how we engage people in actually trying and using these. The list of examples is much longer than what I've shown you today. So there are no bad ideas. The scope is huge. The world of accessibility is enormous. So there are lots of ideas that you can use, but these are the boxes that you have to tick if you feel that you can submit for a grant. So the last slide I'm going to show you is how to apply for a grant. So there's submission. So submit your project proposal via the online application form. The link will be shared naturally. Then there's, of course, a deadline. So these are rolling basis. So they will be extended a few times a year. Next deadline is July 30th. And then you can read the rest here, requirements. That is something that you need to go through, but it matches pretty much what I just talked about. It has to describe the accessibility challenge addressed, the technical solution proposed, and its potential impact on people with disabilities. So this is what we've just been through, but these are super important boxes to tick if applying for a grant. And then we have the eligibility. So this can be NGOs, you can be academics, researchers, AI startups, inventors. There's lots of different ways you can come from. So we don't have any predicate of who you are. So you just have to have the right group and tick the boxes. That this can also be projects that are co-funded by Microsoft and other groups. So these are how we can apply for a grant. And I hope that the presentation today has made some of you innovative minds out there, giving you the idea and sparked an interest in going down the accessibility route, or one of the other great programs that we represent in Microsoft. But I want to thank you all for your time. I hope that this presentation was inspiring and that you have learned something. And if there's any questions or anything else, then please contact me. I've put my email address here. Also, we have my dear partner in crime, Nefeli, who is also coordinating philanthropies for Central and Eastern Europe. So she is also available to contact. Otherwise, we are both on LinkedIn. So you're welcome to send us a comment there, or if you have questions around how to apply, if you have questions around anything around these grants, if you want us to share more on one of the other types than accessibility, then we are here and we are ready to hopefully get this out to as many people as possible so we can do great things. So thank you all for this. Thank you for listening in. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to extend me an email or LinkedIn. Thank you.